Okay, guys, the reason we're doing this video today is we're all busy. The church is starting in a few weeks, and as we all know, there's a lot going on. A lot of you have responsibilities. And as we thought about thinking through how we're going to do small groups at Cross Park, we thought we need to use our time effectively, efficiently, and so in order to do that, we're doing a YouTube video today. So it's our first foray into the YouTube world for Cross Park Church. And so if I'm awkward on video, just bear with me. The goal of this video is not to teach you how to lead a small group. As we've looked at our list of potential leaders, most of you, frankly, have led probably many small groups in different churches, parachurch settings, etc. And so this isn't teaching you, how to ask questions, how to set up Lemonade, etc. The point of the video really is to help us think together about what do we want to accomplish specifically at Cross Park Church with our small groups. And hopefully you're sitting in the comfort of your own home with your spouse, or maybe you're in your cubicle, ignoring work that you have to do today as you watch this video. So thanks for joining us. So here's the question, and I've got my notes here. The first question we're going to answer is, what are we trying to accomplish with Cross Park Small Groups? And by the way, that is the name of our small group ministry, cleverly enough, Cross Park Small Groups. Not life groups, not community groups. We're calling them small groups. Here's the first thing we're trying to do. The first thing we want our small groups to do is to bear the DNA of the church as a whole. Oftentimes small groups are very limited in their scope, and we understand that they have some limits to what they can do. But as we think about Cross Park Church and we think about our vision for being about Him we proclaim, we really want the interaction of those three elements to be part of our small groups. So, for example, we want biblical content and gospel focus. We want to be focused on Christ. We do want real connection and community where people are experiencing the gospel and they're wrestling through life together about we. And we want to have a proclaim element. And frankly, we all know this is the hardest part of a small group. Small groups are really good at being tight-knit and a group of people who like each other. It's harder for them to be open to new people and to reach out. So as we're getting started with these Cross Park small groups, it's important that we think about all three of those areas, Him we proclaim, and the interaction of them is what we want to accomplish. And one way that it should help you as you think about how will we do that? What will that look like at Cross Park? Is to think about our values. I'm going to put some of this stuff in the email I send with this link so you can look back and refer to it. But if you're not clear, we have 6 values at Cross Park Church: worship, word, world, Charlotte, community, and cultivation. So you're thinking, in our small group, we're wanting to worship and be in the Word. And again, obviously, it's not a church service. You don't have to have music every week. We're not saying that. But we want people to connect with Christ when they're there. Also think about the world in Charlotte. I'll give you some ideas in a moment of how you can do that. But you're not thinking this is just my group of friends that gets together for Bible study once a week. We're thinking this is a group where the gospel is being lived out among us, but also through us. And so we're thinking about Charlotte and the world. How can we, even as a small group, in our time together, consider how we can impact those around us. And then finally, community and cultivation. Community is one of those classic things that happens in a small group. We love each other, we're bearing burdens, we're praying for one another, and it's very significant. But also we want to cultivate people. We want to grow. We want to see new leaders being raised up as well. When we think about what we're doing with small groups at Cross Park, we don't have a lot of programs, if you haven't noticed yet, at Cross Park. One of the reasons is because we're a new church and we don't have the capacity to run a lot of programs. But there's also a stronger philosophical reason why we don't have a lot of programs. We don't want people to be at the church 3 or 4 days a week, which is easy since we don't have a building. But we don't want people spending all their time on church activities so that they never interact with anyone outside of church unless they have to. In fact, we want the opposite to be the case. We want you to come on Sunday mornings and worship, to be a part of the worshiping community on Sunday mornings. And we want you to go to these small groups. But outside of that, we really want you to be in the natural spheres: work, school, kids' activities, sports activities, whatever it is you do naturally outside of church. We want you to keep doing those things. Not just keep doing them, we want you to use those. We want to say, God has providentially called you to these things. He's given you an interest in soccer. And so you're playing soccer, your kids are playing soccer, and that's your mission field. You go and watch Monday Night Football every week at Taco Mac. Guess what? That's a great thing. Keep going there if you can use that as a way to continue to create relationships with people who don't yet know Christ, and you can get in their lives and share Christ with them. So, small group is one of the few programs that we're doing at the church. So in a sense, it has an elevated place of significance for Cross Park. We really want these small groups to be done well. We want them to follow the DNA of the church. we want them to follow some of the things we're talking about in this video today, because we're not having a lot of programs. We don't have lots of different ways to get plugged in at Cross Park. So for you, as you're considering leading one of these small groups, your leadership is really important. In order for people to come into these small groups and to enjoy it, to connect, to begin to plug in, your leadership is vital. And your ability to be open and vulnerable and welcoming, those things especially will be important as you lead these groups. One of the things you want to think about as you prepare your Cross Park group is we want a place where new people can plug in. There's a phrase sometimes that people talk about in evangelism and in church, is that you want people to feel like they can belong before they believe, that they don't have to walk in the door being able to answer all the answers to the Westminster Shorter Catechism. They don't have to come in and have been a Christian for 10 years. That anyone can come into your small group and can find a place where they can plug in, they can begin to feel comfortable. They like the community. This group of people cares for one another. This group of people does things together. They do things even outside of this night together in an hour and a half. And they can begin to belong to your group, maybe while they're still wrestling through what they believe. Maybe they're not sure if they really can follow Christ, if they really trust Him. And yet we want our small groups to be a place where people can plug in even before that's the case. One way to do that is to kill the uptown bias. Here's what I mean by that. Many of our leaders, not all of them thankfully, but many of our leaders are coming from Uptown Church. So we're really thankful for Uptown Church. If anyone from Uptown is watching this video, we're really glad for you. And we're really glad that Uptown has planted us. But we all know that inside jokes are one of the fastest ways to kill new community. If a person comes into a small group and 80% of the small group has all these inside jokes and clearly have known each other forever, and they're talking all the time about Uptown and Tom Hawks and all the things that they've done together for the last 10 years, it's really not welcoming at all. The new people feel like, wow, this group of people isn't open to me at all. They all know each other. They all have these inside jokes I don't understand. I don't think I could really be comfortable here. I don't really want to connect here. This isn't a place for me to grow and make new friends. So we've got to kill that bias. Practically, part of what that means is you have to monitor yourself, and especially as a small group leader, you've got to help your group not regularly talk about, hey, back at Uptown, we used to, etc. Because again, that creates a community that's closed. It says, we have history and connection, and yeah, I guess we're glad you're here. But we really care about what we used to do. Cross Park is a new church. One of the greatest advantages of us being new is God has new things for us to do. So we really want the small groups to be focused on what is God doing in Cross Park now, and how is God going to use Cross Park in the coming years. Some of you are not from Uptown. And the same is true if you happen to have a fellow friend from Forest Hill. You don't want to spend all your time reminiscing about the good old days at Forest Hill. You want to be a place where we're focused on what God is doing now, what God is going to do next in our lives. So we've got to kill our inside joke biases, whatever they may be. Now, how do you need to think differently about this small group than maybe some other small groups you've led? Here's one way. These small groups are not necessarily intended to last until the new heavens and new earth. Okay? A lot of church small groups, one of their greatest downfalls is that people don't realize they have a natural life cycle, right? That small groups can't go on forever. Now, we all know they don't go on forever. People move, people change jobs. Hardly any small groups go on forever. But the vast majority of church small groups need to have a certain life cycle to them. Now, we're not dictating exactly what that has to be because we don't know how God's going to work. But from the front end, especially as a leader, you need to think, this is a work in progress. We're together for now, and we may not be together forever. The goal, because the longer the group exists, the more sort of insular it gets and the more inwardly focused it gets. Now, that doesn't have to be the case. And I've certainly seen small groups that have broken that mold. But this group is not intended to last forever. Most small groups probably have a realistic life cycle of 12 to 18 months. And in 12 to 18 months, if they haven't grown significantly or multiplied, they're probably going to start turning inward and becoming very ineffective at having new people come. So you need to think, and you need to help your people in the small group think about the fact that this small group is not intended to last forever. God has us here for now. We're going to fully plug in and enjoy one another and enjoy what God's doing, knowing that we won't last forever. And one of the ways that you communicate that without simply saying, hey, if I don't like you people, we may just end this thing. That's not what we're trying to say. We're hoping these groups will grow and multiply. We're hoping that in 6 months, 9 months, maybe even faster, maybe longer, depending on the group, that your group will grow, and you'll say, we can't handle this many people in my living room anymore. And in fact, we need to multiply the group. And split is always a word we don't like to use in the church context. But in the best possible way, we want to plant new small groups, just like we're planting this new church. Cross Park is not a split from Uptown. It's Uptown saying we want to plant a new church, we want to birth a new church. We want the same mentality in our small groups. So that as your group grows, the goal isn't to get to be 30 or 40 people. The goal is to be, when we get to a certain size and certain group dynamics, probably maybe that 15, 16 range, you start going, hey, this could easily be 2 small groups. And then these groups would be, lighter, slimmer, and more easy. They'd be able to accommodate new people much better, and also my living room is full. So you want to think that way. The groups aren't going to last forever. We want them to grow and change and multiply. In that vein, we're starting more groups than we need from day one. We could, put 12 people in every group from our launch team and have a couple of groups, but we're creating more groups than we need so that the groups are smaller. The groups are naturally ready to take new people. And frankly, it creates a sense of, if we want our group to be strong and to grow and to have fun, we need to get new people. Every Sunday morning, we want all of our small group participants, but certainly our small group leaders, to be thinking, when I meet new people this morning, one of my primary goals is to ask them if they're involved in a small group and to give them an invitation. We would much rather have people walk out of Cross Park's doors on Sunday morning having too many invitations to small group rather than not enough or none. It's going to be hard enough sometimes for us to be we're at a school, we're in the gym. It feels different than a lot of people's church experiences. A lot of that's positive, but some of it's negative too for people. So for a newcomer to come into Smithfield Elementary, to find their way down the hall, to find the gym, not really sure what is this church and what are we getting into, if they were to walk out of there without feeling truly welcomed, not just friendly, we can be friendly and smile and shake hands. We want to really welcome people, and one of the best ways to do that is to get them connected with our small groups. Now, not everyone's going to choose to come to our small groups the first time they come, but you would much rather have them go, wow, these people really like their small groups and they really want me to come, rather than to have the reverse be true. Another thing we're doing with these small groups that may be different from other small groups you've led is that we're creating the groups with several leaders or potential leaders in the group from day one. One of our values, as I mentioned earlier, is cultivation, right? We want to develop new leaders. We want all our people to grow and develop, but especially we want to cultivate new leadership. So the group is designed with multiple people who can lead so that, one, they can easily multiply. If 20 people show up your first couple weeks of small group and you go, wow, we need to multiply already, you already have multiple leaders who can take the groups. But also, in the very near future, we're hoping that as we grow and develop, we're going to have a need for even more leaders. And so we want these groups to be a place where people who maybe are shorter on leadership experience or maybe just aren't as confident in their ability to lead small groups will have some opportunities to lead a group and even to get some helpful feedback and evaluation on how they can continue to grow. So we want to use these groups to cultivate, obviously, our members and their spiritual lives, but also to cultivate leadership, okay? Another way that we want these small groups to be a little different than maybe other small groups you've been in is we want the group to not just be a Bible study, okay? Bible study is positive. That's one of the primary things you do in a small group. But we want you to think about functioning beyond the context of we just get together and we study the passage and the leader tells us what it says and we all go home. And maybe we have some cookies. We want to think more broadly than that. So here are some suggestions, some ways to begin thinking of how can this group be something beyond a Bible study. Some ways you could do this is, as a group, you could throw a party of some kind, March Madness party, 4th of July party, whatever. Throw a party that's not about small group, but that your small group throws, that you invite your non-believing friends, or your friends that don't go to church, your friends down the block, your friends from work, as a way to connect with people in a fun way outside of the small group. You as a group could look to serve together in mercy ministry in some way, either through Cross Park or in these early years and weeks, as we don't have a lot of specific program opportunities, looking together for a need around you in South Charlotte, and as a group saying, we're going to go do Habitat together this weekend. We're going to serve at the soup kitchen this weekend. Another thing you could do is, as a group, you could assist someone, could be someone in the group or a neighbor, who has a real need. They need some help with their house, their yard, and they can't do it themselves, and you as a group could go together to do that.